Thank you, Greg, for coming on this morning. This is Greg Wilson from Cruiseco, one of the biggest cruise organisations in Australia. It may even be for the world too. But anyway, Greg will explain how Cruiseco works and why there's advantages in using Cruiseco, and also why you should even consider cruising. Greg, good morning. Tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Well, thank you, Alan. I'm Greg from Cruiseco. I am the sales exec, and I love cruising. It's something that I've grown up with ever since I was about five. When I went on my first cruise on one of the old P&O liners. Kind of gone on holidays with parents, something that they've always loved, and then had the opportunity back a while ago when I was working for a bank, and I had to take holidays, and then ended up looking in the paper and saw an ad for Princess Cruises, which I signed up for, filled in the details for, and then got a call from Los Angeles for an interview. Not thinking that I had any of the experience needed. Went for the interview and then got a call about 8 weeks later. Would I like to join? Did I realize that contracts on the ship were for 6 months? And then went off and joined Princess for a number of years, which is great because rather than me paying to be a passenger on board, someone's paying me to work on board and sort of travel the world and experience everything that you've got. So it was a great experience that I had. When I came back from that, my now wife would have killed me when we were dating if I'd have come back after that and gone again. So settled down and sort of moved into sort of travel agent and being a consultant for a couple of years, and then had the opportunity to move across through to what I love probably more than anything else, which is the cruising aspect of travel and sort of being able to experience all the differences with that. So yeah, that's sort of how I got into the business of cruising.
Uh, that is, well, that's the way a lot of people get involved in the travel industry, I suppose. They start off somewhere and then they move along. And now, tell us a little bit about Cruiseco itself, the
Cruise
organisation.
Yes, Cruiseco that I work for, we're a consortium of around about 220 travel agencies around Australia, which we hope to be able to offer unique and exclusive products to at different times, as well as being able to sell up to around about 60 different brands of worldwide cruising. We have a range of different charters at different times, sort of from different brands, including music charters, multiple times during the year, and also other places where we take out sort of charters of like 32, 34 nights for unique through the Mediterranean, also up the east coast of the US. Things that are just different, something that our members wouldn't normally, agencies wouldn't normally have access to. That's what we're trying to generate, is something a bit different. We also put together a lot of different packages which are unique, and we also have access, because of the size of our organization, to often being given some fares, cruise fares, which you can't actually obtain anywhere else. We have lots of allocations, so we may have access for our members to be able to sell into space on cruises which isn't available anywhere else. So it's a nice industry to be in.
It certainly is. Now, tell us, perhaps you would like to explain the advantages of cruising as against other forms of holidays.
In terms of cruising, it's part of another holiday often for a lot of people. From Australia, it's always nice that we can relax for a bit in between maybe a fast-paced pre or post traveling through Europe. The beauty of it is obviously is being able to unpack once, put all your luggage away. I always like to do it before the safety drill at the start of the cruise, and then I can just relax completely. It's often a nice way to be able to see places that you often otherwise aren't able to. Good example of unable to see easily, examples like Antarctica or Alaska, where really the ship is the way to get there. Up in Alaska, it can take you 5 days to drive sort of through Canada to get to Alaska, whereas you can be cruising out of Vancouver, nice and relaxing, having someone look after you with all the food and sort of entertainment, and someone look after your cabin, floating hotel, and being able to get to the ports like Juneau, Ketchikan, Skagway, which pretty much, other than sort of cruising, it's very difficult to get to. But sort of with that, you've got such great destinations all over the world that you can visit. Different types of ships, the big ships, the small ships. You've got expedition ships. You've got luxury mass market. There's normally a ship there that will suit the right person, or each ship will suit a certain person, and that's where the beauty of being able to understand what the actual client's looking for, and being able to see that information and check out what the options are. I mean, there's over sort of 60 different cruise lines in the world, and they all have something that makes it magical, I think, and each ship is special. Some of them may be newer, some of them may be older, some of them are more inclusive. Some will include your drinks, your shore excursions, as well as all your main meals and entertainment. Others you will actually learn on board. So there is a great range of different varieties of cruising, which just make it amazing to be able to experience. And you can do it as a simple getaway for like a week, just even out of Australia, or you can travel the world. And you're often, for Australians, it's a nice break in between that sort of fast-paced while we're travelling the world as well.
Yes, it certainly is. Now, what are the top three things that if somebody was going to cruise, what are the top three things that people should perhaps know?
Probably the top three things to me, depending on where the sort of cruising is the language of the cruise line on board is one, as to whether it's an English-speaking cruise.
Can we stop there just for a second?
Sorry.
There was some garble, so let's just do that again.
Sorry.
No, that's not your fault. It's the system. Okay.
Yep.
I'll interrupt. We can get this cut out, so it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask that same question again. What are the top three things that someone should know if they wanted to go cruising, especially if they're a first-time cruiser?
If they're a first-time cruiser, probably depending on sort of where they're actually traveling to, how to get there, what actual things they need to be able to get on board the cruise, like passport requirements, health, how much money it's going to cost them on board, what is included in their fare, what other options they have for a sort of extra dining. Is there specialty dining? Is this a formal cruise ship, particularly if they're a first-time cruiser, so that they feel comfortable on board the ship? If it's a formal night, they know that they should take sort of formal evening wear, or is it going to be a casual night? Need to take special clothing for the destination, like big jackets or boots for maybe the cold weather cruising of Antarctica, or is this supplied on board? I mean, other things would be like the language of the cruise line. Sometimes some of the cruise lines that are based sort of in Italy or Germany may have predominantly Italian or German passengers on board, and this is all things that as to make the client comfortable on board the actual ship, and things that I think are sort of important for that. Is there any medical requirements that they do need to take on board, and is the ship able to cater for this? How long will the clients be in port? All of these things I think are important that are good to have a look at, so that you get the right cruise for the right person.
Thank you. Yes, that's very good information. I know that there are people that have almost they cruise all the time. So, have you come across any of those sort of clients that have done a lot of cruising in their lives?
I have had. I find that cruising probably is one of the biggest repeat businesses that you get. I know when I worked on Princess, we used to have some clients which would probably spend up to 10 months of the year on board the ship, where they would get some little benefits along the way as well. So it is something that you can find people going on different ships. Maybe they stay to the one cruise line because they like the past passenger benefits that come through for it, for them for repeating on the same cruise line. Or alternatively, they want to try a different aspect of cruising, different experience. So the big ships, the little ships, yes, but it's something that definitely you see a lot of repeat passengers coming through over and over again.
Can you tell that? I better. Okay, let me just cut that out. Can you also tell us what are some of the benefits of being a repeat passenger on cruise ships?
Well, depending on the cruise line, for example, like Princess with the Captain's Circle, you can end up sort of maybe getting even for your second cruise on board, you'll normally get a cocktail party with the captain, or you get free as you go through more and more cruises. You may get sort of free laundry or internet, or even having your minibar stocked before you get on board. There are also some of the cruise lines where you may also get the option of access to cheaper fares at different times. A lot of them do look after and do value that past passenger a lot. They do vary from cruise line to cruise line, so it is worthwhile sort of checking with your consultant for that as well.
Yes, that's so true. If you're loyal to the cruise lines, they give you they give you a lot of benefits, in fact, and sometimes the prices do come down.
And there's also another part as well, that I also know. If you are a shareholder of some of the cruise lines, they also give you some onboard credit as well for that.
Oh, well, that's handy to know.
Yeah.
So, and also, do you think people need to have experience of cruising, or they just learn as they go on the benefits and all the rest of it?
I think that it's always good to ask people questions if you like when you are traveling for the first time, to ask questions. I always like to let them experience what cruising is rather than telling them exactly what the cruise is going to be like, so that they can learn and experience it as they're actually going through. I mean, in most cases, I think I've only had one person that didn't like cruising that I have actually sort of suggested a cruise to, and even they, after about 6 months, went on another cruise. They just decided that the ship that they'd been on wasn't for them. So I think it's a lot about sort of just experiencing it at the time, and sort of allowing things. When you're on board the ship, they will give you normally a daily plan as what's happening throughout the cruise and the day. But if you do have questions, it's good to ask them before the cruise. But don't things can change, and there's always the ports and the experiences that you can go sort of do short excursions along the way as well.
Greg, now there are ships and there are ships. There are ships that are 5 or 6 star, and there are ships that are not quite that at that level. Do you want to talk a little bit about the quality of the different ships that are available and what's provided on the different ships?
Yes, thank you, Alan. In terms of, they range right from sort of the 3-star in a lot of cases, where we're right through to the 5 stars is sort of where everything's included. The 3-star is sort of what we call the mass market. They're generally quite large ships. They may not be quite at the same standard, but they can offer, like, not as luxurious, but you will still normally have all your food included. You've got your cabin included, and they're taking you to amazing places around the world. With the facilities, with those 3-star, you may pay a little bit more on board for sort of the sort of drinks and other things like that, because they're not all included. But then as you sort of move up into sort of the 4-star vessels, they start to include generally newer vessels, probably bigger vessels with a lot more entertainment and facilities on board. Optional dining venues, things like that. And then when you move up into sort of the 5-star luxury products, where I always like to tell people, if they're going on one of the 5-star cruise lines, please also make a list of everything you don't think you could get from a luxury hotel or cruise ship if they haven't done that before, and tick them off as they ask for them, because pretty much on those 5-star vessels, everything's pretty much included for you, all your drinks, food, some of the best dining at sea. Some of them also include shore excursions. It's make a list of everything and then sort of mark it off, because it is an amazing experience. You can have in-room dining with them. It can be delivered to your cabin course by course. I know on one cruise line, I rang up to make the order to have in-room dining with my wife. They come and actually turn the sort of table in the room, the coffee table, it's on hydraulics, turns into the dining room table. They then bring the food in course by course on silver service, and you ring up to ask for a bottle of wine or the glass of wine. And they say, we'll bring you the whole bottle, it's all inclusive. So there is quite a difference. Generally, the sort of luxury probably isn't as family friendly as you would find with sort of the 4-star mass market, the big ships that can carry anything up to probably 5,000 passengers. The luxury ones probably carry between about 300 and 500 in most cases, up to 1,000 in some ships. They're all different. Those big, if you're looking at going as a family, you'd probably find that to be something of the big ships. They have great facilities for children, if the parents are looking at sort of having a bit of a break as well.
Thank you. That leads into the other topic, food. I know there's too much of it, and you've got to be very careful about going on board a ship. The joke tends to be that you walk on the ship and you roll off afterwards. Would you like to talk about food on ships?
Yes, well, generally the food is something that you can have pretty much 24/7 in most cases. And yes, I normally seem to put some weight on while I'm on board as well. Depending on the cruise line, it will as to what the offerings are on board. But I mean, you've got all your breakfast, lunch, dinner. Often breakfast will either be available you normally have a buffet available for breakfast, lunch, dinner. You also have sort of the a la carte restaurants as sort of normally the minimum on most ships. They're normally, you've got waiter service with all of that, ordering sort of amazing food. There's often sort of specialty restaurants with Italian, with like pizzerias or steak restaurants. So there's some examples. There are some that also have like Asian specialty restaurants on board. A lot of them are included restaurants, but then you also have some that you do pay extra for. So you can sort of make it that special opportunity to sort of be able to dine with friends or family or a romantic evening. The food is normally fantastic. I mean, doesn't matter which ship it is, they all have sort of amazing food. It's also great when you don't have to cook it as well.
That is so true, and I know for a fact on some of the 5-star ships, the chefs top standard chefs, and the food just is not only the food is delicious, the presentation is also wonderful. Entertainment, that's another big thing on ships. Would you like to talk about entertainment a little bit, Greg?
Well, entertainment, I mean, it varies. Often with the smaller ships, you will have sort of a bit quieter entertainment. Maybe sort of like a string quartet or just a comedian or something a little bit smaller in the show lounges on board. With the biggest ships, you may end up sort of having the full Broadway production style shows that you would see in sort of the West End or Broadway, something like that. They actually are now bringing those massive big shows to the big ships, which is a great sort of evening entertainment. But then you've also throughout the day got a range of things. Some of the new ships also have sort of like dodgem cars and ice skating rinks, rock climbing, particularly the big family ships. But during the day, you've also got the sort of wine tasting sort of options, or sort of food carving, cooking demonstrations on some ships. Some ships have now even putting on sort of full demonstration kitchens, so you can have a bit of a master chef, and they're even bringing on some of the specialty sort of chefs, even like Marco Pierre White and a range of different chefs like that. So there is a lot of different things out there in terms of entertainment. You've got your bingo and all sorts of things. The beauty of the ship is you can do as much or as little of that as you like. If you didn't like something in particular, you don't have to do it. So they're catering for all tastes. So there's hopefully something on each ship that will cater for you.
Yeah, it's certainly diverse. There's another aspect of cruising for people is where they some of the specialty cruises, in fact, bring on lecturers, top quality lecturers from around the world. Would you like to talk about some of those type of cruises as well?
Yeah, they're sort of the ones with specialty lectures. They're generally some of the smaller vessels going with their sort of destination-based cruising. So it's down to Antarctica or up into the Arctic, the Galapagos, even sort of around the Kimberley in some cases closer to home. They will normally put on lecturers that are specialists to the areas and know the history or the sort of in-depth detail as to where you're actually cruising with that information, and they will normally hold lectures each day. In some cases, particularly like for Antarctica, when they're telling you about what you're going to be doing the next day, when you're getting off in sort of the zodiacs and other things like that. Or they've got the history and they can really give you an in-depth idea of what you're actually going to be seeing and doing sort of during the cruise. As another example, even up into Alaska, when you're cruising into Glacier Bay, pretty much all the ships up there will actually have the National Park Rangers on as well. And they also normally do talks and sort of give you the information with that as well.
Also, would you like to talk about the different types of cruising that is available? We've been talking about cruising without letting people know that there are river cruises and Asian river cruises and just all sorts of Mediterranean cruises, just all sorts of different cruises about. Would you like to sort of discuss a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's cruising wherever anybody wants to go. There's generally a ship that's going to be able to do it, and in that, there is also, rather than just the big ships, there is also those river cruises, which generally are smaller, cater normally maybe for if you looked at maybe doing the European river cruising. If you've ever looked at maybe doing coach touring, a lot of people are now looking at that river cruising. Amsterdam to Budapest is obviously a very popular one, normally probably carrying around about 150 passengers maximum. And because they're on the river, they're able to cruise right into the sort of heart of the cities of Europe or wherever they are sailing. Something that that is now opening up a lot more to our market would be sort of Asia river cruising. I mean, with the Yangtze, also on the Mekong and Burma. I know at Cruiseco we've got our own vessels on the Mekong and Burma, which have been very, very successful for us. In particular, those we've really worked to sort of be able to show people what the life of the people in those countries actually, how they live, a snapshot of that with our local crew that we have. But they have all the facilities. You can come and go. You've got a very modern vessels pretty much all the way through that area. And you get to experience the life of the people along the river as well. Yeah.
That is so true, and also every now and then they have special prices where instead of paying the full price, they sometimes have two for the price of one. And also the other interesting thing, which I think is interesting, is that how are single passengers looked after on cruising?
I mean, with pricing in general, there's often, you will find that is from time to time special pricing. Sometimes that may be just discounted or even two for ones, maybe close to the time of sailing. We obviously hope that most of the cruises can go out full, but there is obviously some opportunity there. So please check it out if you are interested in cruising. There's often deals that may be better than what the brochures showed for the actual cruises. In terms of the I've forgotten what the last bit was there. Sorry.
No, let me remind you, we're talking about single travellers.
Single travellers, yes.
There's a lot of single travellers around, and how would they go on a cruise?
Well, with singles, often a number of the cruise lines, particularly the British cruise lines, actually do have single cabins, and they've actually been adding in recent years extra cabins to them, which has been good. which which allows a single traveller who doesn't want to pay for either share with another person or pay the full fare of a big cabin. They often have smaller cabins just specifically set up for one person nowadays, which is a great opportunity. There is also an opportunity with some brands that you can actually share with a stranger. And have obviously not pay any single supplement. And then from time to time, there is some cruise lines that will have sailings at different places around the world where you don't even need, you can pay the twin share costing on a limited number of cabins sometimes, and you'll be able to get that without paying anything extra, which is, I know when I'm at expos, people are often asking me about that.
Thank you. Now, probably this will be one of our last questions, or the last question I'll probably ask you now, is Cruiseco has a lot of music cruises. Would you like to talk about the various music cruises that are available?
Yes, I mean, over the sort of the last 5-6 years, we've had a lot of music cruises coming along. We have a range of different themes that we do operate. What we do with the music charters is we charter a whole cruise ship. So if you're used to cruising, take the cruise. We then add on all the extra entertainment. That can be basically all the extra electrical, musical equipment, stages. We add on a lot of extra equipment from what it is normally, and then we bring on all the artists. So this, if you like the theme of, we've got Bravo, which is Cruise of the Performing Arts, which is stage, screen, opera. Which this year we have Dame Kerry DeCarnawa on it. We also have Cruise and Country, which is country music throughout. It's a bit like a music festival at sea, like Tamworth, but at sea. We've also got Cruise and Groove with John Farnham as the headline act. So you can see we're getting big artists on board these cruises. And we also have Rock the Boat, which is rock and roll. Rock the Boat often changes which sort of decade of music it's at this each year. This year it's sort of going to be 1960s UK rock and roll, and we have Chubby Checker on for that one as the headline act. So it's an interesting lineup. There's often maybe one of these cruises doesn't appeal to you, but maybe one of the others will. And the beauty of it is you're on with all the artists. They're going to be on for the entire cruise, so you are able to mix and mingle with them as well. There's often impromptu acts on board throughout, because these artists don't always get to perform with one another, and you can end up with them in the schooner bar sort of joining in with other artists that they don't normally get to, and they all enjoy that. Passengers love it because everybody on there is like-minded. They either all like whichever theme it is, so they know what they're getting into. So it has a really good vibe on board, and you get to see the sort of South Pacific as you're cruising through with all the normal facilities of the cruise, with the food and entertainment, but it is a little bit different to the normal, and we get a lot of people who will be either new to cruising go on them, or that also are repeat passengers of those music charters, because they are a lot of fun. And the other interesting thing with the music charters is we get a lot of clients that would maybe be normally a luxury client in some cases, that even on the mass market ship, because it works very well with splitting the entertainment up into different venues which they offer, we get a mixture of people on there for that you wouldn't just normally see on maybe even the ships that we use.
Thank you, Greg. Greg, thank you very much for coming on to this podcast. And if anyone's interested, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that would be interested, just contact me, Alan Suss from Travel Managers, and I will find the cruise for you. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much, Alan.